Hey, eighth graders, Catlin here with your cool down help for lesson 3 in unit 3. And let's jump right into it. We're going to graph this relationship. You had 2 in class like this with your group, so this should look very familiar. Excuse me. We're going to sketch a graph that shows the relationship between grams of honey and grams of salt. So, salt and honey. So, the flour to us is pointless for this particular relationship. We're going to show on the graph how much honey is needed for 70 grams of salt. So, 70 grams of salt. We need to find out how much honey that's going to be. The first thing that we need to do to be able to find out that question mark is calculate our constant of proportionality. So we need to know what we need to multiply by 70 to get over here to the question mark. Now, to find that, we need to divide either 14 and 10 or 35 and 25. I like dividing by 10 because 14 divided by 10 is really simple to do. You can just move your decimal one place to the left, and that would be 1.4. So technically, our constant of proportionality is 1.4. You also could have reduced that to 7/5 if you wanted to use fractions instead. 1.4 is pretty easy to work with, especially multiplying by 70. So that's what I'm going to choose to do in this particular case. So I'm going to do 70 times 1.4 and multiply it out. 0, 28, 0 placeholder, 0 and 7. Add them together. 8, 9. Move my decimal over. 98. So I'm going to need 98 grams of honey with my 70 grams of salt. So I don't know. This might have been a typo, but they had them both be G in this case. So I'm going to change one of them just for this particular one because having G for both doesn't really make sense. I'm going to change honey to H. That seems to make pretty good sense, and we'll do G for grams of salt. All right, so let's go with putting our, and it doesn't really matter how we do this. I'm going to put H on my vertical axis, and I'm going to put G for my salt down here. So I'll put salt on my horizontal. I'll put honey on my vertical. And we need to choose some intervals on our scale for our axes that will fit 98 for honey vertically and will fit salt 70 within its realm. So let's start with the honey. We need to get up to 98. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And we got to get to 98. 5 times 14 is not going to be enough if we count by fives. So I'm going to count by tens. I think that's a pretty good in between because if I count by tens, I definitely will at least get up to 98 easily. I could go all the way up to 140, but we can stop at 100 because that's as much as we're going to need. So I'm going to go up to 100 for the honey because all I need is 98, which is right there. And then for the salt, I've got 14 down here. So 70, a better choice than 10, because 10 would only get me like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. That would only be halfway. So I could use all of this graph if I counted by fives 5, 10, so on and so forth. So I'm going to count by fives instead, because whenever you make graphs, you want to utilize as much of the grid as possible. And in my opinion, that's what I think. So I'm going to count by fives, and it should just be perfectly landing on 70, which is awesome. So whenever the salt, which is on the bottom, is 10 right here, the honey is 14, and that would be right about there. Whenever the salt is 25, the honey is 35, which would be perfectly between the 30 and the 40 right there. And whenever the salt is 70 all the way down, we need to go up to 98, which is nearly very close to the 100. And it is a proportional relationship. So let's draw ourselves a beautiful little line here through the origin. And you can use a straight edge or a ruler to do that at home. And we need to show on the graph how much honey is needed for 70 grams of salt. I'm going to show that with an ordered pair. Okay, here's how I'm going to do that. So when 70 is our grams of salt, comma, my honey would be 98, which I've shown also on the table. And now I have shown on the graph, right? So 98 is how much honey I need, and it's the second ordered pair, so we know that's on the y-axis. And that's your help for your cool down, and you guys have a great afternoon, evening. See you tomorrow.